I had no idea that a cartoon backpack would completely reshape my entire existence. Standing at the bus stop after my shift, I noticed it tumble near my feet, SpongeBob's grinning face staring up as if begging to be rescued. Curiosity made me crouch down and unzip it. Inside were textbooks with a child's messy handwriting, a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich wrapped in crumpled foil, and a laminated card that read, "If found, return to Sterling Heights, penthouse 4. No phone number. No promise of reward, just an address that belonged to a world galaxies away from my cramped studio apartment above a laundromat. My first thought was practical. Would security even let someone like me through the door? Then I noticed the sandwich again, hastily packed, probably by small hands rushing out the door for school. It reminded me sharply of my younger brother, who lived 3 states away now and barely returned my calls anymore. Something about that careless, innocent lunch made my decision. I'd return it myself after work tomorrow. Maybe it would ease some worried parent's mind, the way I wished someone had eased my mother's worries when I was young and constantly losing things. Sterling Heights turned out to be nothing like the buildings in my neighborhood. The lobby gleamed with marble floors that reflected an enormous crystal chandelier, and the security guard examined me with the kind of suspicion reserved for people who clearly didn't belong. His eyes traveled from my coffee-stained work uniform to my scuffed sneakers. "Delivery?" he asked, his tone heavy with judgment and assumption. I held up the backpack, forcing myself to meet his gaze, steadily. "Found a kid's bag at the bus stop. Just returning it." His expression shifted dramatically, surprise mixed with something that looked almost like respect. He immediately grabbed his phone, spoke rapidly to someone upstairs, then waved me through without even asking for identification. The abruptness felt strange, almost unsettling. Inside the elevator, I caught my reflection in the polished mirror. My name tag hung crooked, my hair needed cutting, and exhaustion shadowed my eyes from pulling double shifts all week. I definitely didn't fit this gleaming world of wealth. The elevator seemed to move in slow motion, or perhaps my racing thoughts made time feel stretched and distorted. When the doors finally slid open on the 4th floor, the sight before me made every thought evaporate instantly. The penthouse door stood open, and a man occupied the doorway with the kind of presence that demanded attention without effort. His suit looked tailored with surgical precision, fitting his tall frame perfectly. Gray eyes assessed me with an intensity that felt almost invasive, as if he could calculate my entire life story in seconds. My bank balance, my aspirations, my failures. "You're the one who found it," he stated rather than asked. His voice carried smooth confidence with sharp edges underneath. I extended the backpack toward him, suddenly feeling foolish. "Found it at the bus stop downtown." He accepted it but kept his penetrating gaze fixed on my face, studying me like I was a document requiring careful analysis. "Come inside." It wasn't an invitation. It was a command delivered with the expectation of obedience. "I really should." I began backing away slightly. "My son would like to thank you personally," he interrupted, and this time his tone softened fractionally, showing the first crack in his controlled exterior. From somewhere behind him, a small voice called out hopefully, "Did the man who found my backpack come?" I found myself stepping forward before consciously deciding to move, pulled by that innocent, eager voice. The penthouse was breathtaking in a way that felt almost unreal. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the entire city like a miniature toy landscape far below. Every piece of furniture looked like it belonged in architectural magazines. Yet in one corner, scattered toys and open coloring books created an island of warmth in all that pristine perfection. A boy emerged from behind the sofa, thin frame, enormous brown eyes that seemed far too serious for someone his age. He kept close to his father's side, one small hand gripping his father's pants pocket defensively. "What do we say, Miles?" the man prompted gently. "Thank you," Miles whispered, gaze fixed on the floor. I crouched to his eye level, smiling warmly. "No problem at all, buddy. I'm guessing you're a SpongeBob fan?" Miles nodded hesitantly, and his father watched this exchange with unreadable intensity. "Please, sit down," he gestured toward the pristine sofa. A young woman materialized as if summoned, carrying an elaborate tray with coffee in delicate china cups, expensive-looking biscuits arranged artfully, and cloth napkins. The level of hospitality felt excessive. making my skin prickle with discomfort. "I'm actually in a bit of a rush," I lied, because this formality felt suffocating. But he poured coffee with practiced ease and settled across from me, creating the atmosphere of a job interview I hadn't applied for. "Do you work in this area?" His tone sounded casual, but the question felt calculated. "Downtown. I work at a coffee shop near the transit center." "And you traveled all this way on your day off to return a lost backpack?" His eyebrow raised slightly. This felt like a test I didn't understand the rules for. "I have a bus pass." And I figured some parent was probably worried sick. Something flickered across his features, pain maybe, or recognition. "There's no mother in the picture, just the two of us." Silence dropped between us, heavy and awkward. Miles remained frozen in place, watching our interaction with those unnervingly observant eyes. I desperately searched for a safer topic. "So Miles, how's school treating you?" The boy looked startled that I'd addressed him directly. "It's okay, math is really hard though." "I always struggled with math too," I admitted easily. "Then someone taught me a cool trick using my fingers for multiplication. Want me to show you?" For the first time, genuine interest sparked in Miles's expression. He took a tentative step closer. For the next 10 minutes, I demonstrated simple counting techniques. Using my hands to illustrate, Miles engaged completely, asking questions, trying the methods himself. His father remained absolutely silent throughout, observing us with that same intense focus. When I finally stood to leave, Miles spoke suddenly. "Could you maybe come visit again sometime?" My chest tightened painfully. I glanced at his father, seeking permission or rejection. He hesitated for several heartbeats before nodding once. "If your schedule permits." He produced a business card from his jacket. Heavy cardstock with raised lettering that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. "Call me whenever you'd like." I left carrying confusion like a weight in my pocket. This wasn't just a simple expression of gratitude for returning lost property. Something else had begun, something I couldn't name yet, and I had absolutely no idea whether I was remotely prepared for whatever came next. 3 full days passed before I gathered courage to make the call. Part of me wanted to reach out immediately, but another part questioned everything. Was it appropriate to befriend a stranger's child? What were my actual motivations here? Then I'd remember Miles' eyes, how profoundly lonely they'd look despite being surrounded by material wealth, and I'd pick up my phone only to set it down again. Finally, on Thursday evening, I dialed the number. He answered on the first ring. "Jason." He used my name like he'd been practicing it, getting the syllables just right. I was thinking, I started carefully, that Miles might enjoy spending time at the park this weekend. "I'm free on Saturday afternoon." A pause stretched across the line. "That's very considerate of you. However, I'll need to accompany you both." This wasn't negotiable. It was a boundary drawn firmly in sand. Saturday arrived with clear skies, and I waited at the designated park entrance when a black SUV with deeply tinted windows pulled up. Miles emerged first, wearing the same serious expression, though a small smile appeared when he spotted me waiting. His father followed, even in casual jeans and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He maintained an intimidating presence. His hair looked slightly less perfect today, almost human. Miles approached the swings with visible caution, as if uncertain whether fun was actually permitted. I gave him a gentle push, and gradually his laughter emerged, genuine, unguarded, beautiful. His father sat on a nearby bench, phone in hand, though I caught him glancing our way repeatedly. When Miles moved to the slide, his father finally spoke. "He doesn't typically warm up to people this quickly. Kids just need patience." I replied neutrally, not wanting to make this moment heavier than necessary. "You have a natural way with him." The compliment landed awkwardly between us. I attempted humor. "Well, I was a kid myself once upon a time." He didn't smile. Instead, he asked directly, "Why did you really reach out?" I met his probing gaze honestly. "Because no child should feel isolated." "He has me," came the defensive response. "Yes," I agreed carefully, "but you're busy managing an entire company, and Miles could benefit from having a friend who's simply present." He absorbed this without verbal response, though his jaw tightened noticeably. We stopped at an ice cream truck, and Miles ordered chocolate enthusiastically before turning to me with shy hope. Jason, would it be okay if I called you uncle? Emotion lodged in my throat unexpectedly. Sure thing, buddy. His father's expression became impossible to read. The drive back to my neighborhood was filled with uncomfortable silence. When he pulled up outside my apartment complex, Miles waved cheerfully through the window. As I prepared to exit, his hand suddenly gripped my wrist, not painfully but firmly enough to stop me. Miles forms attachments very easily, he said quietly, urgently, and when people inevitably disappear from his life, he withdraws for months afterward. His eyes burned with protective intensity. So if you're doing this because you pity us, end it immediately. The fence flared in my chest. Pity has nothing to do with my actions. Then explain your motivations, he challenged. I chose complete honesty. He reminds me of my younger brother, who won't speak to me anymore after our parents died. His grip loosened as his expression softened considerably. I apologize for assuming. Don't apologize, I said while opening the door. Just try trusting me. But walking into my empty apartment, doubt crept in anyway. Because alongside my growing care for Miles, something else was developing: concern and curiosity about his father that felt increasingly complicated. The following week, Miles invited me to his school's Parent Day event. I hadn't planned to attend, but his earnest phone call made refusal impossible. Arriving at the prestigious private school, I immediately felt out of place among parents wearing designer labels and discussing vacation homes. My simple button-down shirt and khakis screamed, "Doesn't belong here." Miles spotted me instantly and ran over with obvious delight. "You actually came." His father was also present, perfectly composed in a tailored navy suit. When he noticed me, his carefully maintained mask slipped for just a second, revealing surprise mixed with something warmer, more complex. The event itself was tedious, administrators giving lengthy presentations about curriculum improvements and fundraising goals. But Miles held my hand throughout, and that simple gesture made everything worthwhile. During the group photograph session, the photographer naturally assumed we were family. "Sir, please join them," he directed me. I stood awkwardly beside Miles, forcing a smile while the camera flashed. Later, while Miles played with classmates on the lawn, his father and I found ourselves alone together. "Thank you for coming today," he said with formal stiffness. "He seemed happy about it," I replied simply. He nodded, then surprised me completely. "There's a cafe nearby. Would you have time for coffee?" We sat across from each other in the small cafe, surrounded by the comfortable noise of other conversations. Silence stretched between us initially. "You don't have to continue doing this," he finally said. "I'm aware of that," I acknowledged. "But I want to continue." His gray eyes searched mine intently. "Why?" I chose vulnerable honesty. Because Miles deserves someone who shows him that caring isn't weakness. And perhaps, I hesitated before continuing, perhaps I'm fairly lonely myself. He leaned back, studying me like a fascinating puzzle. "You're remarkably transparent, Jason, and you're extremely guarded," I countered. Several seconds passed before he smiled. A real smile, not the polite version he showed the world. "That's fair." Our coffee arrived and conversation flowed more naturally, discussing Miles's progress in school, my work at the cafe, small observations about the city. Yet underneath ran a current of something unspoken, something neither of us was quite ready to name yet. Driving back with Miles asleep in the rear seat, we stopped at a red light. His father turned to look at me directly. "I misjudged you initially," he admitted quietly. "I assumed you had ulterior motives." "And now?" I asked. "Now I think you're simply kind, which is rarer than you'd imagine." His hand brushed mine briefly as he shifted gears. Accidental contact that sent electricity racing up my spine. We both pretended nothing had happened, but something definitely had. Driving through the evening streets, I realized this connection had expanded beyond just Miles. His father, whose full name I still barely knew, was occupying more and more space in my thoughts. And that realization felt equally thrilling and absolutely terrifying. The following month passed in a blur of unexpected domesticity. I found myself at their penthouse several evenings weekly, helping Miles with increasingly complex homework, sharing pizza dinners while watching animated movies, sometimes simply reading quietly while his father worked late in his home office. I learned his name properly from a courier delivery, Cameron Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics. Late one night, curiosity drove me to search online. Articles detailed his business acumen, his company's impressive growth, and one brief mention, widower, single father. No details about his late wife appeared anywhere. I didn't want to pry into painful history, but questions lingered. Tonight when I arrived, I immediately sensed something was wrong. Miles looked flushed and miserable, curled on the sofa under blankets. Cameron appeared stressed in ways I hadn't witnessed before. His tie hung loose, sleeves rolled up messily, hair disheveled from running his hands through it repeatedly. The pediatrician confirmed it's just a common flu, he explained, exhaustion evident in his voice. But he's refusing to eat anything substantial. Let me try something, I offered, heading toward their enormous kitchen. I prepared simple chicken soup, nothing fancy, just vegetables and noodles cooked the way my mother had made it when I was sick as a child. Miles managed one spoonful, then another, then actually finished half the bowl. Cameron stood in the doorway throughout, watching with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. After Miles finally drifted into feverish sleep, I started washing dishes at their sink. You didn't have to go through that trouble, Cameron said softly, suddenly standing much closer than I'd expected. I know, I replied, focusing on the soapy water, but I'm here anyway, so why not help? He picked up a dish towel and began drying, falling into an easy rhythm beside me. This ordinary domestic moment felt strangely intimate in the quiet kitchen. You've become a constant presence here, he observed, his tone carefully neutral. If you'd prefer I visit less frequently, I started to say. No, he interrupted quickly, his hand landing on mine to stop my words. I meant you've become integrated into our daily life. Our routine. Our eyes locked, and the air between us shifted perceptibly. The kitchen lights were dimmed for the late hour, silence broken only by the dishwasher's quiet hum. We stood close enough that I could detect his cologne, sandalwood mixed with something uniquely him. Cameron, I said carefully, is this situation appropriate? What situation do you mean? He asked, though his lowered voice suggested he understood perfectly. This. I gestured vaguely between us. I should just be Miles' friend, shouldn't I? His hand moved to my jaw, touch feather light and testing. Are you? Just his friend. My breath caught audibly. This was the moment to step back, to re-establish clear boundaries, but I remained frozen in place. I don't know what I am anymore, I whispered honestly. He leaned closer until our foreheads nearly touched. I haven't experienced these feelings since. He paused, visible pain crossing his features. Since losing her. My heart clenched. This raw confession made everything suddenly, terrifyingly real. Cameron, we can't pursue this. Why can't we? He challenged, his breath warm against my skin. Because of Miles. Miles cares deeply about you, he interrupted. And I? He hesitated before continuing with quiet intensity. I'm exhausted from being alone, Jason. That admission shattered my remaining defenses. When his hands framed my face gently, I didn't pull away. Instead, I moved closer, surrendering to whatever was building between us. His kiss started tentative, questioning, seeking permission. I responded, pushing logic aside completely. The kiss remained gentle initially, exploratory, filled with unspoken questions. Then it deepened, becoming urgent as months of unacknowledged tension finally released. When we eventually separated, both breathing unsteadily, reality reasserted itself. Stay here tonight, Cameron said, his voice rougher than usual. Not a demand, a request. In the guest room, he quickly clarified. Just stay. I could have left. Should have left, probably. But leaving meant ending this moment, pretending nothing significant had happened. All right, I finally agreed. Morning arrived with sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. I woke to find Miles standing in my doorway, wrapped in his blanket, looking confused but not upset. Uncle Jason, you stayed over? Yeah, buddy, I said, sitting up. It got really late, so your dad suggested I sleep here instead of traveling home. Miles accepted this explanation with a child's simple logic, then climbed onto the bed to hold my hand. I'm really glad, he mumbled sleepily. I like it when you're here. Emotion tightened my throat. This wasn't just about Cameron anymore. Miles was emotionally invested now too. That realization felt both beautiful and frightening. Reality intruded the next day at my coffee shop. A woman entered wearing designer clothes, moving with cold confidence and purposeful strides. She walked directly to my counter. "Are you Jason?" she asked without preamble, her tone sharp. "Yes," I answered cautiously. "And you are?" "Natasha, Cameron's business partner and longtime friend." She paused deliberately. "We need to have a conversation." My stomach dropped. We found a corner table away from other customers. "Listen," she said with brutal directness. "I don't know what's developing between you and Cameron, but you need to understand something important." I waited silently, dreading what was coming. Cameron is still healing from devastating loss. His wife's death nearly destroyed him completely. And Miles has serious abandonment issues. He's currently in therapy trying to process his mother's death. So whatever you're doing, whatever this is, you need to be absolutely certain you're committed. Because if you leave them, you'll cause damage that might be permanent. Her words cut deeper than any physical wound. "I don't want to hurt them," I defended weakly. "Then don't get involved unless you're prepared for what that means," she said sharply. Cameron's world is incredibly complicated. Constant media attention, demanding social obligations, intense business pressure. "And you?" she assessed me with clinical honesty. "You don't come from that world. So before this progresses further, think very carefully about whether you can handle what's coming." She placed her business card on the table. "My number. If you ever realize this is too much, call me. I'll manage the situation discreetly." After she left, I stared at the card, doubts flooding back with crushing force. Could I really navigate Cameron's complicated existence? And if I failed, what would happen to Miles? That evening at the penthouse, Cameron immediately noticed my troubled expression. "What happened?" he asked privately when Miles went to wash up for dinner. I explained Natasha's confrontation, holding nothing back. Cameron's jaw tightened visibly. "She had absolutely no right to ambush you. But she was right," I said softly. "If I can't fully commit." "Can you?" Cameron interrupted desperately. "Can you commit to this, Jason?" I looked into his eyes, seeing fear and hope and something deeper. Maybe the beginning of love. "I'm terrified," I admitted. "So am I," he confessed. "But I want to try. With you." I took a deep breath. This was my moment of choice, commitment or escape. "I want to stay," I finally said. "But we need to move carefully. For Miles' sake." Relief washed over Cameron's face. "Careful. I can manage careful." But that promise would prove difficult to keep. Because life never moves carefully when deep feelings are involved. And we were both already in far deeper than either of us had intended. Our attempt at taking things slowly lasted exactly 13 days before reality crashed through our carefully constructed boundaries. Around Miles, Cameron and I maintained the pretense of casual friendship. No lingering touches, no meaningful glances that might confuse him. But once Miles fell asleep each night, we existed in stolen moments that felt suspended from time. Conversations stretched until sunrise painted the windows gold. Accidental brushes of hands became deliberate connections. Kisses began tentatively and spiraled into something desperately urgent that left us both breathless and craving more. Then the outside world forced its way in with brutal efficiency. Cameron received an emergency call requiring his immediate presence in Dubai for critical contract negotiations. 5 days maximum, he assured me while throwing clothes into expensive luggage, though tension carved deep lines around his eyes. Miles clung to his father's shirt with desperate fingers, tears threatening to spill. "I want to come with you. Next time, I give you my word," Cameron promised, guilt making his voice rough. His eyes found mine helplessly. "Would you be willing?" "Yes," I interrupted without hesitation. "I'll stay here. We'll be fine." But this wasn't simple babysitting. This was assuming complete parental responsibility for a child who wasn't mine, in a home worth more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. The first day passed smoothly enough. Miles and I created chaotic masterpieces in the kitchen, attempting homemade pizza, played board games sprawled across the living room floor, and I read 3 chapters of his favorite adventure book before he drifted off to sleep. Day 2, however, revealed cracks in Miles' composure. He came home from school unusually withdrawn, answering my questions with monosyllables while avoiding eye contact completely. "What happened today, buddy?" I asked gently while we sat at the kitchen island, with untouched snacks between us. "Nothing important," he mumbled, pushing cookie crumbs around his plate aimlessly. That night, reality struck with devastating force. Miles's screams woke me from fitful sleep in the guest room. I sprinted to his bedroom to find him thrashing against his sheets, sobbing uncontrollably, calling for his mother with heartbreaking desperation. I gathered his trembling body into my arms, rocking him while feeling completely inadequate for this moment. "She isn't coming back, is she?" Miles gasped between sobs, his small voice fracturing. "Uncle Jason, why would she abandon me?" My heart splintered into jagged pieces. What could I possibly say to ease this profound grief? "She's gone." "Yes," I admitted honestly, my own voice thick with emotion. "But her leaving had nothing to do with you. She loved you more than anything in this world." "Then explain why she left," he cried with the raw confusion of a child trying to understand mortality. "Sometimes people depart even when they desperately want to stay," I said carefully, choosing each word with precision. "Your father is here, and I'm here now. That won't change." "Do you swear you won't disappear too?" he whispered with terrified hope. "I swear it," I promised without considering whether I could actually keep such a vow, silently begging whatever gods existed not to make me a liar. Morning arrived with exhaustion weighing heavily on both of us. I called Cameron to provide a brief update. He experienced nightmares last night. About his mother. The silence on Cameron's end felt suffocating before he finally spoke. "I should be there with him. You're managing essential business," I replied, struggling to keep frustration from seeping into my tone. "I can handle the situation here, Jason." "Listen," he began. "I understand," I cut him off, not wanting hollow reassurances. "Just come home as soon as possible." Voices erupted in the background, professional, insistent, demanding Cameron's immediate attention. I suddenly understood with painful clarity where priorities truly lay. "I need to go," he said, clearly torn. "I'll definitely call you tonight." But that call never came. Instead, I received a terse message. "Meeting extended unexpectedly. We'll reach out tomorrow without fail." I stared at my phone screen as hurt settled into my chest like cold stone. This glimpse revealed our potential future. Cameron's demanding career consuming everything while Miles and I occupied whatever leftover spaces remained in the margins of his life. Day 3 brought an unexpected visitor. Natasha arrived without warning under the guise of checking in, though her sharp, assessing gaze made me immediately uncomfortable. "Miles is at school," I informed her while partially blocking the doorway. She nodded and deliberately surveyed the visible apartment. Breakfast dishes still cluttering the sink. Miles's toys scattered across the expensive rug, my jacket thrown carelessly over the designer couch. Evidence of my temporary habitation marked every surface. "Playing domestic?" she asked with a slight edge, one perfectly shaped eyebrow arching. "Helping out as requested," I defended firmly. "Cameron asked me to stay during his absence." "Certainly," she agreed while inviting herself inside and settling onto the sofa uninvited. "However, this represents a temporary arrangement. Cameron's existence operates at an extraordinarily complicated level. Constant international travel, board meetings extending past midnight, social obligations with society's elite. Tell me honestly, Jason, where precisely do you envision yourself fitting into that picture long term?" I remained silent initially, because I genuinely lacked an answer. Her question gave voice to doubts that had been quietly multiplying in the darkest corners of my mind. "I'm not attempting cruelty," she continued, her tone softening marginally towards something resembling sympathy. "But Cameron's world differs fundamentally from yours. And when reality fully hits, which it inevitably will, who suffers most? Miles. Potentially you as well. Possibly even Cameron." She produced another business card, apparently maintaining an endless supply. "Consider this seriously. What happens when media scrutiny intensifies? When Cameron's social circle refuses to accept you? When you realize this lifestyle drains you completely?" After she departed, I stood on the balcony watching city lights blur through tears I refused to let fall. Was any of this worth the inevitable pain? Did I possess sufficient strength for Cameron's complicated world? Or was I simply setting myself up for failure while simultaneously damaging Miles? Cameron finally returned on day 5 looking utterly depleted, jet-lagged, barely able to stand upright. Miles tackled him with desperate hugs while Cameron held his son like a drowning man clutching a lifeline. His eyes found mine over Miles' head, expressing gratitude mixed with apology. "Thank you for everything, Jason," he said while we shared a brief, careful embrace with Miles watching. But I could feel the tension humming between us, the distance those 5 days had carved into our fragile connection. That night after Miles fell asleep still clinging to his father, Cameron and I sat in the living room with heavy silence pressing down. "I apologize for leaving you with such responsibility," he began, genuine remorse coloring his features. "It's your career," I replied, neutrally while avoiding his gaze. "I comprehend that reality." "No," he said firmly, moving closer to cup my face gently. "You're justifiably upset. I abandoned you with complete parenting duties. Will this be our pattern?" I interrupted, finally meeting his eyes directly. "You constantly traveling while I stay here juggling everything? Living in perpetual uncertainty?" "I'll create more time," he immediately promised. "Promises cost nothing," I said with unexpected bitterness. "Actions define truth. Words alone mean very little." He flinched as if I'd physically struck him. "You're absolutely right," he admitted quietly after uncomfortable silence stretched between us. "I'll demonstrate rather than just promise." "I genuinely hope so," I said softly, the exhaustion making my voice thin. "Because Miles desperately needs stability. And if I'm truly integrated into his life, I need certainty that this is real, not merely Mernin." Cameron kissed me then, desperate, almost pleading, attempting to communicate through touch what words had failed to convey. But doubt had already established permanent residence in my mind, whispering questions I couldn't silence about whether we were building something real or just postponing inevitable heartbreak. Life after the tabloid exposure never returned to normal. Instead, it transformed into an unwelcome new reality we were forced to navigate daily. Photographers occasionally lurked outside my coffee shop hoping for candid shots. Online gossip forums dissected every detail of my relationship with Cameron. Strangers speculating wildly about our private lives. Cameron's elite social circle buzzed with constant whispers, judgmental, curious, invasively intrusive. We attempted to maintain brave faces, desperately trying to preserve our protective bubble. But bubbles always burst eventually. The breaking point arrived unexpectedly with Miles' school annual function. Every parent received enthusiastic invitations. Cameron naturally assumed we'd attend together without questioning the decision. "This event means everything to Miles," he mentioned casually over breakfast. "He specifically wants both of us there together." "Cameron," I said carefully, anxiety already tightening my chest, "if media discovers we're there as a couple, let them discover it," he dismissed confidently. "I refuse to hide our relationship anymore. We've moved beyond that stage." But I absolutely wasn't prepared for that level of intense public visibility. Not remotely. The function day arrived with me internally panicking. Cameron wore an impeccably tailored formal suit that radiated power and authority, every inch the commanding CEO. I'd chosen a simple, modest blazer that felt comfortable but clearly belonged to an entirely different economic class. The moment we arrived at the elaborate school campus, stares began immediately. Parents whispered behind raised hands, their judgment mixing with poorly concealed disdain and intrusive curiosity. My chest constricted painfully. Miles was absorbed in his performance. An adorable play where he bravely portrayed a tree standing perfectly motionless with branches extended. He enthusiastically waved toward us from the stage, his face absolutely glowing with pride. My heart melted completely witnessing his pure joy. But during intermission, harsh reality delivered a brutal blow. A parent dripping with ostentatious jewelry and wearing a condescending artificial smile approached Cameron while deliberately ignoring my presence initially. "Cameron, darling, far too long since we last spoke." After hollow pleasantries, she turned her cold gaze toward me with obvious dismissiveness. "And who precisely might this be?" "Jason," Cameron introduced smoothly without hesitation. "A close family friend." "Ah," she said, her tone absolutely saturated with loaded implications. "The mysterious man from those tabloid photographs." Painfully awkward silence descended. "Miles is incredibly fortunate," she added with poisonous false sweetness, "having such varied influences during his formative years." My fists clenched unconsciously. nails digging crescents into my palms. This was barely veiled judgment wrapped in superficial politeness. Cameron politely but firmly excused us and protectively guided me away. "Ignore her completely," he said quietly once we were alone. "She's always operated that way, perpetually judgmental." "It's not exclusively her," I pointed out honestly, keeping my voice low. "Literally everyone is openly staring and whispering about us." "Then let them stare endlessly," Cameron dismissed firmly. "Their opinions hold zero significance." But I could acutely feel the crushing weight of collective judgment pressing down from all directions. Miles's performance concluded beautifully, and we applauded loudly with genuine pride. But when traditional family photographs began, the photographer asked awkwardly, "Family picture?" Cameron responded without a moment's hesitation, "Absolutely yes." The photo session felt unbearably uncomfortable. Forced smiles barely concealing tension, hyper-awareness of constant whispers surrounding us, feeling completely exposed and vulnerable. During the silent car ride home, Miles chattered innocently about his performance while Cameron remained unnaturally quiet, his jaw visibly tight and knuckles white against the steering wheel. After Miles finally fell asleep exhausted, the delayed explosion erupted violently. "You deliberately made me feel embarrassed today," Cameron suddenly accused, his voice harsh with frustration. "What did I do?" I asked, genuinely shocked and immediately defensive. "You were visibly uncomfortable the entire time," he pointed out sharply. "Everyone noticed. Parents noticed. Teachers noticed. Because everyone was openly judging us." I countered, my voice rising despite attempts to control it. "Your privileged world fundamentally refuses to accept me, and I cannot pretend everything is perfectly fine when it clearly isn't." "Then what exactly do you want from me?" Cameron demanded with pure frustration. "Should I constantly apologize for my entire existence?" "No," I said exhaustedly while rubbing my face. "But I genuinely need you to properly recognize that this situation isn't remotely easy for me. This world, these people, I don't belong here at all." Silence fell, heavy and absolutely suffocating. "Perhaps," Cameron finally said slowly, each word clearly painful, "you're fundamentally not ready for this relationship. For us." Those carefully chosen words cut like a sharp knife slicing deep. "Perhaps I'm not ready," I admitted with brutal honesty. "But this isn't purely about me anymore. Miles is critically involved too. If we maintain this constantly fractured, unstable relationship, he'll inevitably suffer most." Cameron ran frustrated hands through his perfectly styled hair, looking completely exhausted. "I genuinely don't know what to do anymore." "Neither do I," I admitted helplessly, feeling utterly lost. We sat in painful silence as emotional distance rapidly expanded between us like an unbridgeable chasm. "Maybe," I suggested extremely carefully, "we genuinely need a proper break. Some space." "A break?" Cameron repeated hollowly, his voice completely devoid of emotion. "Temporarily," I quickly clarified, "to properly figure out whether this can actually realistically work long-term." "And what about Miles?" he asked with raw pain evident in his glistening eyes. "I'll personally tell him honestly," I promised despite my throat tightening painfully, "that I need temporary time to process everything." "This is just a convenient excuse," Cameron accused bitterly. "You're simply running away like everyone eventually does." "No," I defended firmly despite creeping doubt. "I'm being realistically honest about my limitations." But deep down I secretly knew maybe Cameron was partially right. Maybe I was desperately running because of fear. The next unbearable day, I took Miles to his favorite park, just us two, without Cameron. "Uncle Jason," he asked with heartbreaking innocence, "did you and Papa have a serious fight?" Children notice absolutely everything, missing nothing. "Yes, buddy," I admitted with painful honesty. "Adults sometimes strongly disagree about important matters." "Are you going to leave permanently?" he whispered with terrified eyes. "Like Mama did?" My heart completely shattered. "I'll never completely disappear," I promised fiercely despite my own uncertainty. "But I might visit less frequently, for a little while." Miles's innocent eyes immediately filled with devastating tears. "Did I do something wrong?" "Absolutely not," I said desperately, pulling him close. "You're perfectly wonderful. This is purely complicated adult problems. Nothing to do with you. I desperately don't want you leaving. He cried into my shirt. I held him protectively tight while my own suppressed tears finally fell freely. I'll genuinely try returning quickly. Solid promise. But that desperate promise felt terrifyingly hollow even to myself. 2 painful weeks passed in awful limbo. I deliberately avoided Cameron, keeping text replies professionally brief while maintaining emotional distance. Occasional video calls with Miles revealed he was noticeably distant and visibly hurt every time. My own life became a complete mess. Work increasingly stressful, crushing loneliness absolutely unbearable. Late one night, my phone rang urgently. Miles was crying hysterically. "Uncle Jason, please come immediately. Papa won't wake up properly." Pure panic froze me completely. "What do you mean he won't wake up?" "He collapsed on the couch, and I'm shaking him desperately but he won't get up," he sobbed. Cameron's extremely weak voice barely came through. "Miles, carefully give me the phone." "Cameron?" I nearly yelled frantically. "I'm technically fine," he said with a dangerously slurred voice. "Just severe flu. Extremely high fever. Didn't want worrying you during our break." "I'm coming right now," I declared without hesitation, already grabbing keys frantically. "Jason, you really don't have to," he protested weakly. "Be quiet," I said firmly, with no room for argument. "I'm already on my way." When I arrived frantically, the scene was genuinely dire. Cameron lay practically collapsed on the couch, dangerously pale and profusely sweating. Miles was terrified and crying uncontrollably. I immediately took decisive action, administering proper medicine, applying careful cold compresses, forcing fluids. Then I gently reassured Miles and lovingly tucked him into bed, staying until he finally fell asleep exhausted. I sat on the floor beside Cameron, concerned. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Didn't want unnecessarily bothering you," he defended weakly. "We were technically on a proper break, remember?" "A break doesn't mean I suddenly stop fundamentally caring," I corrected softly but firmly. He looked at me, completely vulnerable. "I desperately missed you, Jason. Every single day. I missed you too," I admitted with raw honesty, walls completely crumbling. In that critical moment, all carefully constructed barriers utterly shattered. I suddenly realized, break or not, I was already far too deep. These people were genuinely mine now, and I couldn't abandon them. Not now, not ever. Morning arrived with Cameron's dangerously high fever finally breaking. He remained weak but properly conscious and lucid. Miles slept peacefully beside me, his tiny hand still clutching my shirt even in sleep. I quietly prepared simple breakfast, comforting food meant to nourish and heal. When Cameron slowly entered the kitchen, we regarded each other extremely awkwardly, weeks of painful separation hanging heavy between us like fog. "Thank you," he said quietly, with genuine gratitude, "for coming immediately despite everything that happened between us." "I'll always come when you need me," I declared absolutely firmly. A break doesn't alter that fundamental truth. Cameron's eyes searched mine intensely, desperately seeking something. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," I said while taking a decisive deep breath, "that I made a serious mistake. Running away doesn't realistically solve fundamental problems. It just postpones them." He approached extremely carefully, maintaining cautious distance. "And I was genuinely wrong too. I carelessly dismissed your legitimate feelings. I failed to properly acknowledge your real struggles." We stood in contemplative silence, carefully processing everything that had transpired. "This won't be realistically easy moving forward," I continued with brutal honesty. "Your privileged world and my ordinary existence, they're fundamentally very different. But we can genuinely try," Cameron suggested cautiously, hope filling his voice. "Actually, seriously try. With real compromises. Honest communication." I nodded slowly while considering the implications. "If we're properly doing this, then we do it completely right. Absolutely no hiding. No careless assumptions about anything. Deal." Cameron immediately agreed while formally offering his hand. I shook it firmly, but then he gently pulled me into a proper embrace. Warm, solid, comforting. It felt exactly like coming home after an impossibly long journey. Miles's sleepy voice gently interrupted our tender moment. "Are you two properly friends again?" We both smiled genuinely. Yes, buddy. I reassured him warmly. Even genuinely better than before. Miles beamed, absolutely relief washing visibly over his small face. Good. Because I definitely don't want anyone leaving again ever. His innocent words struck deep. A powerful reminder of what was truly at stake here. The following careful month involved deliberate slow healing. Cameron made extremely conscious efforts, significantly reducing travel, noticeably increasing quality family time, and consistently validating my feelings properly. We started therapy together. Couples counseling felt unconventional but proved absolutely necessary. Our therapist helped us drastically improve communication while mutually setting realistic expectations. Miles occasionally attended sessions too, bravely expressing his deep-seated fears about abandonment. Slowly, carefully, hard-won trust rebuilt itself brick by brick. The real ultimate test arrived unexpectedly when Cameron's company announced their prestigious annual gala. Attendance is absolutely mandatory, he explained apologetically. Major investors, entire board members, literally everyone important will be present. I hesitated nervously, old fears immediately resurfacing. I'll genuinely attend, I finally declared bravely. Cameron looked genuinely surprised. Are you absolutely certain? There's no pressure. If we're taking this relationship seriously, I reasoned firmly, then I cannot indefinitely hide from your world. Gala day found me internally terrified. Cameron personally arranged for an exclusive tailor to create an expensive suit for me. Perfectly fitted, undeniably expensive, completely unlike anything I'd ever owned. When I finally stood ready, Cameron looked at me and whistled appreciatively. You look absolutely incredible, Jason. I genuinely feel like a complete imposter. I admitted nervously and honestly. You perfectly belong, he reassured me extremely firmly while holding both my hands. With me, always. The gala proved absolutely overwhelming. Massive chandeliers casting prismatic light, endless champagne flowing freely, powerful players wearing sharp designer suits everywhere. Immediate stares greeted us, whispers clearly following. But Cameron firmly held my hand throughout, publicly, absolutely defiantly. Completely ignore them, he whispered, protectively close to my ear. Focus purely on me. We eventually danced on the floor together, initially awkward and self-conscious, but gradually becoming comfortable as the world faded around us. Thank you, Cameron said softly and genuinely while we swayed together. For being incredibly brave tonight. I'm still terrified, honestly, I admitted, but you're definitely worth facing that fear. He kissed me then, brief, absolutely tender, deliberately in front of literally everyone watching. Audible gasps erupted. Immediate camera flashes exploded around us. But I genuinely didn't care anymore. This authentic moment belonged entirely to us. Later, Natasha surprisingly approached with an unreadable expression. Genuinely impressed, she admitted honestly. Didn't remotely think you had it in you. Had what exactly? I asked, confused and slightly defensive. Real strength, she explained simply. To stand firmly beside Cameron despite absolutely everything. Judgment, media scrutiny, social pressure. Perhaps I was completely wrong about you initially. This unexpected validation surprised me but felt deeply appreciated. Weeks later, life finally peacefully settled into a new normal. I still proudly worked at the coffee shop, though Cameron had thoughtfully arranged flexible hours. Miles was confidently thriving at school, regular counseling noticeably helping him process his mother's death. One peaceful evening, we three sat contentedly on the carefully decorated terrace, romantic dinner under specially installed fairy lights that Cameron had thoughtfully arranged. Miles enthusiastically showed us his latest colorful drawings. Then he suddenly said casually, Uncle Jason, can you permanently live here? Always? My breath caught dramatically. Cameron and I exchanged extremely awkward glances, both caught off guard. Miles. Cameron started extremely carefully. That's genuinely a big, serious decision. But I desperately want it, Miles insisted with innocent determination. We're all genuinely happy when he's permanently here with us. I looked toward Cameron questioningly, my heart racing wildly. He firmly grasped my hand, steady and reassuring. I want exactly that too, he said softly, but clearly. If you're completely ready for it. My heart raced absolutely. This represented serious, permanent commitment, real and lasting. Yes, I finally said emotionally while genuinely smiling through happy tears. I'm completely ready. Miles cheered excitedly and simultaneously hugged us both tight. Cameron kissed me gently on the lips, slow, absolutely promising forever together. Welcome home properly, he whispered meaningfully. In that perfect moment, surrounded by soft fairy lights and genuine laughter, I deeply understood. Home fundamentally isn't just a physical location. It's the special people who truly matter. And I had finally found my real home. With Cameron and Miles, imperfect definitely. Complicated absolutely, but perfectly completely ours. Months transformed into years. We faced challenges, media scrutiny never completely disappeared. Social judgment occasionally resurfaced. Miles experienced difficult moments processing grief. But we navigated everything together as a united family. Eventually we made our commitment legal and official. The small private ceremony included only our closest friends, with Miles serving as our proud ring bearer. Standing there exchanging vows, I remembered that ordinary day when I'd found a cartoon backpack at a bus stop. I'd returned a lost bag expecting nothing in return. Instead, I'd discovered something infinitely more valuable. A family, a home, a love worth fighting for despite every obstacle. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness lead to the greatest transformations. And I wouldn't change a single moment of our complicated, beautiful journey together.